Hi, I'm Krista Redpath, and you are listening to Around the Big Sky in Women's Hoops, a weekly podcast brought to you by Krista Redpath Media, where we break down the game, elevate the story, and champion the female voice.
Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops, presented by Advanced Imaging this week. We will talk about them a little bit more throughout this first hour, and we'll get into all the stuff that went down last week in the Big Sky Conference, and then as well as this week, all the matchups that come our way. So here's what went down in the league last week. We'll start with Thursday's games. Eastern Washington beats Idaho State 78-71. Idaho, a nice win over Weber State 77-62. Montana State wins at Sac State. Cats didn't shoot it very well, and it didn't matter because they just kept piling up turnovers and getting steals and doing what they do. 67-45 at the Nest. And then Montana has a blazing first half and a decent third quarter, and then they kind of held on, but they still won by double digits, 73-61 at Portland State. Nate Harris in the postgame, he said, hey, probably on me that we didn't win this thing by 25 or whatever, just because I kind of called off the Dogs, played conservatively down the stretch. But either way, a road victory for the Lady Grizz. Then on Saturday, Northern Arizona beats up on Northern Colorado 68-52. Montana State ends the game on a 26-2 run at Portland State to win 85-39. I do believe that is the largest margin of victory by a Tricia Binford team in a league game, and she's been the head coach there for 20 years, so that's a pretty good sample size. The surprise of the weekend, Idaho State beats Idaho 52-44. Montana wins at Sac State to get the weekend sweep 69-63. Weber State beats Eastern 62-48 to salvage the weekend split. And then on Monday night, Northern Colorado gets back on the winning side with a 59-51 win over Idaho State. And NAU keeps the momentum going with an 81-76 win over Weber State. I want to start with the fact that it was a clean sweep for the Montana schools. That's impressive considering that they were on the road. And for that to happen, you need the Lady Grizz to get the sweep. You probably thought Montana State was pretty favored in both of those games, but Montana, especially going to Sac and completing the weekend sweep, thought that was big for the Lady Grizz. What did you think of just how Montana played this weekend?
I think that they played all right. I mean, I look at the spread in terms of involvement from multiple players, and I think McClement McCall is having a really good run in these last few games since the Montana State game. She's been in double figures, 17 and 19 over the weekend, just giving them nice offense when they need it. Danny Barch, 12 rebounds this last game. She's doing a lot better. I think she's kind of finding her flow. And
getting healthy, too, I think, right?
Yeah.
You can tell she just had more pop. Yeah, she can just tell the way she's moving is just a little bit more fluid.
Right, and with Avery Waddington inserted into the lineup, it makes them a little bit more quick out of the chute. And, you know, she finished with 10 points. And, again, I think if you're Montana, 2 road wins is impressive.
That's
and
good.
I mean, you're making the turn now and you're putting yourself in a good position. We will talk more about, you know, getting one of those top 6 spots now in this last month of February is really big to get that first round bye in Boise.
Talked to Avery Waddington earlier this week. We'll play a couple sound bites of that later on this week. She's a freshman from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. But her perspective was interesting because, you know, she said, hey, I'm one of the new faces on this team, but we have a lot of new faces. And there's been a lot of turmoil, obviously, with Brian Holsinger getting put on administrative leave and Nate Harris taking over as the interim coach. That plus the fact that it just takes a while to sort of coalesce as a team. But it seems like they found some stuff, both in their team chemistry, but also just in their rotations in their lineup. Waddington's emergence has been big. McClement McCall, her shooting and her insertion in the starting lineup, I think, has been big as well. So I think that they've sort of found a better flow just as a team, especially in the rotation.
Well, and they've won the last 4 out of 6 games.
Yeah.
So that's obviously it's impressive. When they ended that UNC and NAU trip, they had lost 7 out of 8. So they were not trending in the right direction. So if you're a Montana Lady Grizz fan, you like to see these wins.
Montana State continues to roll 13 in a row now for the Bobcats. They are 10-0 in Big Sky Conference play. And I was just so impressed with the way that they finished the game. I mean, they had this thing sewed up, and Tricia Binford put her bench in. I mean, basically, the last 5 players on the roster she put in for the last 6 minutes of this game, and they dominated. I mean, they absolutely ran away with it, a 26-2 run to close the thing. Montana State ends up with 23 forced turnovers again, 17 steals, unbelievable the way that they're playing defense. And the fact that they can do it, she likes to play 10. They went like 1 through 13 in this game, and they still were able to close this with such authority. So what did you think of just the way that Montana State closed this game?
Well, it's an emotional one because obviously Esmeralda Morales is heading back to Portland State for the first time. She has a phenomenal game, and, that stings a little bit for Chelsea Gregg. That's her recruit, and, Esmeralda wanted to be a part of a winning program and wants to win a Big Sky Conference championship. So that's just what these kids have their right to be able to get into the transfer portal. I think that they dominated on all avenues of this game. It's a really hard one to really break down. I mean, they completed a pretty difficult 4-game road stretch.
Sure.
They gave Trish Binford her 6th 20-win season, 3rd in the last 5 years. That's pretty impressive.
Well, that's the other part, is that they have 20 wins, and we're only 22 games into the season. I mean, this is the greatest start in the history of the Big Sky in terms of overall record. So
I got to give a little shout out. Tom Schultz had a great fact. MSU's 20-2 start matches the best run for a team since 1987-1988, which, I mean, that's incredible.
I mean, it's just that's my whole life. I was born in 1987, so that's certainly an impressive mark, no doubt. And it takes so much, right? It takes being able to win in the non-conference. It takes being able to win on the road. I mean, that's the thing. The Cats have been unbelievable. They have a great home court advantage. They've been unreal away from Bozeman. I mean, they are like almost unbeatable on the road, which is not something you say about hardly any team.
A team that relies on defense, which is exactly what Coach Binford talked about in the Sac State game. She just said, defense was the difference. You saw the first quarter when they played Sac State, it was 7-5.
Right.
At the end of the first quarter. Then Montana State just steps up that defensive intensity and locks down, and then they find these offensive spurts and just great leadership from KJ, Esme, and Mara Dykstra. I mean, those three leading the way. But when you are Montana State and you go 8 to 10 deep, you don't fall off at all. When you bring even a Natalie Picton in off the bench, she gives a great offensive surge. Talk a lot about Cherrick and what she does for the game. But, I mean, you could really go down the list. Addison Harris, Hannah Robbins, Taylor Jensen, Lexi Deedens kind of taking a step back. I think they're just buying time. And she's going to be back next year, too. So
she gets another year.
She does get another year.
Okay, that's good for her because you can tell she's certainly still coming back from what was a devastating knee injury last year.
Yeah, it's tough to come back.
Totally.
And to find your way in your flow of your game. And the way Lexi plays, Coulter, we've talked about this a lot. She's on the ground.
Totally.
She is, loose balls, finding gaps. She's a very aggressive player. So Montana State, just lots of weapons.
So many weapons. I mean, when you really consider, if you had a lineup that was Natalie Picton, Taylor Jansen, Lexi Deeden, Ella Johnson, Taylor
I didn't even mention Ella Johnson.
Taylor Cherrick. There's 6. None of those young ladies I just named started.
Izzy Bunyan.
Isabel Bunyan. I mean, those 7, none of those are their starting lineup over the weekend. I guess Ella Johnson started this last weekend.
Yeah, she did.
But either way, those are like Montana State's quote-unquote role players. That team right there, minus the other ones that we didn't mention, is a great team in the Big Sky Conference, let alone then you add Esmeralda Morales and KJ Martin and, all these other great players to it. And, I mean, that's why they're just so stacked. They have multiple starting caliber players.
And it really brings relevance to the Lady Grizz only losing by 1.
No doubt.
Because they've gotten the closest, really.
No question.
And so that'll really set the stage for an interesting part 2 of the rivalry down in Bozeman in a couple weeks.
Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops, probably presented by Advanced Imaging. Chris Redpath in studio with me, Coulter Nuanez. Idaho was one of the surprises in the league, and they were keeping pace a little bit with these top 2 teams. But then they got blown out by Northern Arizona last Saturday. They bounced back with a win over Weber, but then they lost to Idaho State on this last Saturday. What did you think of that? What did you make of that? That was one of the surprising results in the league so far this year.
I think there's a very big rivalry between Idaho State and Idaho. It goes back to the Sean Sobolewski, John Newley days. We've seen it. Over 1,400 fans in Moscow, which I think is great.
That's
when
awesome.
I look around the Big Sky, I mean, that's going to be, second or probably third, behind the Montana schools.
Yeah.
But I thought that it was, started out first quarter, nobody could score. It was a really low scoring first quarter. But Idaho State, boy, they really came on in the second quarter and third quarter. But Idaho just seemed to make baskets when it counted. And But again, Idaho State just kind of pulled through. I think it was a back and forth for a while, Coulter. And, I was pretty impressed with Sophia Cavello. She finished with 15. You got Piper Carlson, and also Casey Spink had 15 boards. I like Casey Spink.
Yeah, Casey Spink's awesome.
I'm a huge fan. I put her on the preseason first team, actually. That's how much I like her. She had 7 points. But, when I look at the rebounding margin, Idaho State, that's where the difference was. They out-rebounded Idaho. And they had key second chance opportunities. They still had 20 turnovers, though. So it wasn't pretty. Idaho State had 20, Idaho had 16. But I think there were some key turnovers and key rebounds that just propelled Idaho State in that fourth quarter.
We'll see if Idaho State can build off of that. Idaho State's been so solid always under Seton Sobolewski, and they've been a little down since they had that all-time great team that was, back-to-back champs and went on the great run. Since then, they lost so much from that, and then the portal hit and all these sort of different factors. But Idaho State being good is certainly good for the league, so we'll see if they can build some momentum off of that. You have a listener question. This actually came in earlier this week, so we appreciate these folks. But they said, question for Krista Redpath when she's in Weber State. Were they missing a player or two before this last couple weeks? Because they look really strong. They are all really clutch, an impressive young team. And I know that they took the Lady Grizz down the wire in Missoula, and then the next night, the next game in Bozeman, they kind of got overwhelmed. The Cats threw that press on right away, and I think we're up 14-0 before Weber kind of got their footing. But what have you thought of Weber just in general? Because after this last weekend, they got 5 conference wins, which is a win more than they had last year.
To answer the question, the point guard Santini blew her ACL, so that's been a huge blow for them. So Weber has been down. They've literally only played 7 to 8 players this year,
and that's why they have a freshman point guard, right? Because the one that's supposed to be the point guard is out, right?
Yes. So I can't even begin to talk about how impressed I am with Gentile Jackson in her second year and what she's got those players doing. There is a lot of scrap and heart, and Nobu, to me, she had another weekend of 2 double-doubles, Coulter. And, I get it. Sophie Glancy could be player of the week every single year.
Totally.
But I'm going to make my plea for Nobu because it's just a very impressive player.
Last team to touch on right now before we take a break is, of course, the team that has been keeping pace with Montana State despite how red hot the Bobcats have been, and that's Northern Arizona. We get to see the Lumberjacks come through Montana this weekend. We expected Northern Arizona to be very good this year, but just having high expectations and actually then being able to fulfill them, it's been really impressive to watch because they have played well in every conference game so far this year, even the one loss that they had against Montana State. I love their system. I love their style. Why do you think they've been able to be so consistent in the way that they operate?
Well, they put up a lot of points. So, I think the surprise, I wouldn't say it's, to me, it's not, and to you, it's probably not a surprise Taylor Feldman's play. But she's averaging, 17 points a game. Sophie Glancy's averaging almost 19 points a game.
Right.
That's a lot of offense from those two.
Yep.
And then you go down to the Moran sisters that are giving you about 20 points a game. Leah Beatty's maybe down a little bit in terms of under 10, but she also gives you a lot of offense. I think it's just their multiple weapons and their style of play. They really get up and down. And I think it's good decision-making by Taylor Feldman. I do. I think she does get into foul trouble at times, and that has plagued NAU. But Sanaya Neverson, also another player that to me is having a great year. I just think they're very poised, and they're coached well, and they're aligned with Coach Payne, and they deliver down the stretch.
If you are an old school type of basketball fan, if you love great post play, like my old high school coach used to say, actually, my old high school coach is Lindsey Woolley, who's the assistant coach for the Lady Grizz, but he used to say, split and sit. You get down, you split the defender, and then you sit. You post up. Sophie Glancy does such a great job of that, and then that just sets up everything around it. And the fact that she is able to run rim to rim, get her touch inside, but then have so many shooters around her. When NAU's got it going up and down the floor, their offense is literally unstoppable.
No one in the Big Sky has been able to push Sophie Glancy out of that block position and not give her that easy two. And that's just, it's easier said than done.
Right? You and I were sitting in Missoula last year watching, I think she was like 11 of 14 from the field, and she had 30 points when she played against the Lady Grizz. But you and I were watching, we're like, is anybody going to deny the ball, or can you get her?
And the hard part, though, is you have to guard them so honest.
No, you absolutely
they have
do.
so many offensive threats on the perimeter, so you don't have the ability to double down, because if you do, sometimes you just get nailed by a three-point shot.
Well, and if you front her, she has such soft hands, you just throw it over the top, and she's just going to get it, and it's a layup all day long.
It's a good place to be in.
It's a great place to be in. Around the Big Sky in women's hoops, presented this week by Advanced Imaging.
Dr. Schmitz, why is breast cancer early detection so important?
Well, Chris, as you may know, 1 in 8 women in the United States will be diagnosed with breast cancer at some point in her lifetime. It's important to keep in mind that when breast cancer is detected early and is in a localized stage, the 5-year survival rate approaches 99%. So when we can catch it early, treatment is much more successful, much more effective, and lives are saved.
Getting screened is absolutely vital. When should women start thinking about getting screened for breast cancer?
Well, the American Cancer Society recommends that women of average risk of breast cancer start getting their annual mammogram at age 40. Women should start discussing those risk factors and their family history of breast cancer much earlier with their physicians. And the physicians may advise those that are at a higher risk of breast cancer start their screenings earlier, as early as age 30 in some cases. So I would encourage everyone, visit our website, get more information about breast cancer screening guidelines and the types of screenings that are available, and start having those conversations with your physician.
Thank you, Dr. Schmitz, and to Advanced Imaging for being the official cancer awareness partner of Grizzly Athletics. I highly encourage all women to talk with their healthcare provider about getting screened for breast cancer, and attend tomorrow's Lady Grizz Cancer Awareness Game versus Northern Colorado to show your support for cancer awareness in our community.
Dr. Casey Schmitz from Advanced Imaging. Appreciate him for chipping in and educating us here at Nuanez Now throughout our Around the Big Sky in women's hoops. But the early detection part of this, especially when it comes to mammograms, is very important when it comes to just prevention when it comes to cancer.
Right. I had my mammogram this last week at Advanced Imaging. Shout out to Elisa, who was the person that checked me in. She's been with Advanced Imaging for over 10 years. And Jamie, the technician, fairly new to Advanced Imaging, but just such a good experience and so important. Obviously, viewers and listeners to this show understand how dear this is to my heart with my teammate, Skyla Cisco, in her fight with breast cancer. And so I just encourage, all these women to go out and get your annual mammogram. It's really important.
Absolutely. And they do all sorts of different cancer scans there at Advanced Imaging. So we appreciate them for being a part of this. And also, if you'd like to check out the game on Thursday that Advanced Imaging is the cancer awareness sponsor for, that's certainly going to be for a great cause as well, as the Lady Grizz host Northern Colorado. Before we get to the update on the current Big Sky Conference women's basketball standings, fun list that Andrew Houghton and I schemed up. His list is posted currently, SkylineSportsMT.com, and mine will be posted a little later on this evening. And basically I said, Andrew, instead of doing all conference teams, let's do teams of like the most impactful player. But then I wanted to have more nuance to that, because there's so many different things that go into impacting a basketball game, and there's certainly multiple players on every team that are impactful. So I said, let's do like the people that they're bringing the juice, the people that have the energy, right? The people that are changing the game in ways that aren't just like statistically measured, right? Or statistically measured beyond just scoring. And so here's our list. Taylor Chiric, Montana State. The Moran sisters at Northern Arizona, Olivia Nelson, the great point guard at the University of Idaho, Taylor Smith, who's a rising sophomore there at Weber State, and Courtney Grossman at Eastern Washington. So, Chris, I just wanted to get your thoughts on a couple of these young ladies. I mean, Chiric we talk about quite a bit because she's just been such a phenomenal impact player so far. But to put it into statistical perspective, she's 7th in the country in steals per game right now, and she doesn't even start. Like she's playing like 17 minutes a game, so her steals per minute is at a pretty all-time high.
But they're so timely for when she comes off the bench. So that's exactly, I mean, you look at like a Peyton Ferris who didn't start for Montana State that came off the bench. I mean, Coach Binford likes those surges that certain players, and I'm not sure that Chiric I think she's a great player, but Montana State's pretty loaded.
No doubt.
So I think the timing of when she comes into games and she gives that added surge on the defensive end and just gets her hands in the gaps and in the lanes, it's nothing to overlook that she has 71 steals. She leads the team in steals, like you said. I mean, she's got national rankings.
Yep.
But overall, she's also quite aggressive on the offensive end. She
Totally.
finds her way to the rim. I think her game will get better as she plays more basketball. We know she's more
Yes.
of a complete athlete. I think she struggles a little bit with turning the ball over, which
Sure.
I think is any type of freshman.
For sure.
That's going to happen, and just getting used to the style of play.
Well, Class C to Division I, it's a gigantic jump. So, it's funny to watch her because you can tell she is a very, very raw basketball player, like especially
Yes.
offensively.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
But her energy is like unparalleled. It's seriously, I don't want to sound too hyperbolic, but I think that's why this role for her is perfect, because they can just put her in. If she's only going to play 16, 17, 18 minutes a game, hey, go as hard as you possibly can. Just wreck the game. And I think it's a great role for the Montana State freshman. How about the Moran sisters? You've been talking about the Moran sisters for 4 years now. Crazy to think that they're seniors.
I know.
But this is the type of players that make championship teams. They've never been like the headlining superstar player on NAU, but they've been solid, great in the starting lineup from start to finish, and by the time it's all said and done, they're going to have a lot of wins. Have been part of a lot of wins at Northern Arizona.
Well, a huge part of why Lori Payne has gotten to the championship for the last 3 years.
Yes.
And, they're 5'11", both of them, twins from Riverside, California.
Lefties.
Yes, and they're it's a unique to have two sisters that play similar and are scrappy and athletic and agile. They add a lot to the game, Coulter, and they fit within Coach Payne's system. So I think they're excellent choice for you and Andrew to pick those two.
And at Idaho, Olivia Nelson's been a huge key. I mean, you could pick actually several of their transfers that have had big impacts, but Nelson has been awesome for Coach Barrera to be able to be sort of the head of the snake running the show. She's a D2 transfer, but she has been really productive, but she's kept getting better. I mean, she had 30 on against Idaho over the weekend, so she's been a very big impact player as well.
The University of Central Missouri transfer, I mean, she started all games her freshman, sophomore, and junior year before transferring to Idaho.
Tons of reps.
And averaged, 14 points a game. Her junior year, I mean, she's a good player. The 5'6" guard, fourth in the league in scoring, though. So she's a scoring point guard.
Yes.
And that's what's been impressive, is to watch her lead this Idaho team of all transfers that we're trying to figure out where each of them fits. And she's done a great job being an extension of Coach Arthur Morera's vision.
And Taylor Smith is just a very apparently talented player when you watch her at Weber State.
Yes.
She's 6'2", she runs the floor really well. And I think her ceiling is very high. She's good now. I think she could be really good.
Well, she scored in double figures 17 times this year, but I think also the last 3 games, she's had 18, 10, and 16. She had 18 against NAU, and that was impressive. So I think she's giving them a lot of scoring, which is what they need. She is 6th in the Big Sky for scoring and 13th for rebounding at 6.1. A lot of size that 6'2" power forward position, but just kind of leading the way for Weber State, actually, and it's been really good to see.
Well, the last one's a Montana girl who's playing over the border there at Eastern Washington, but Courtney Grossman. I knew she was going to be a good player at the Division I level. I didn't know it was going to be in this style, though. I mean, we misspoke.
Dominating.
I mean, we misspoke and said she was the leading rebounder in the league a couple weeks ago. She actually is now, though, because she's had 4 games of over 15 rebounds since we said that.
And it hasn't transcended into more wins for Eastern Washington. They're struggling. They got to build around a player like Courtney Grossman. Coulter, the last 7 games, she's posted double-doubles. I mean, that's unreal.
For a true freshman.
Yes. I can't get over this small forward, just, again, athletic. Her stride and decision-making as a freshman, she gets after it. Anytime you're going to have double figures for rebounding, you have to be working real hard out there. But then offensively, Coach Jody Gleason has really found a way to put her in a position to continually score, and she's done it for them.
Right now, she's averaging just a shade over 10 points and just a shade over 10 rebounds per game. There's still 7 games left, but if that holds, she'll be the first Big Sky Conference player since Alicia Davis to average a double-double in a season. Alicia Davis was one of the most talented players the league has seen.
She not only came onto the scene, I think she solidified herself to me as a first-team player as a freshman. First-team all-conference. I mean, when I look at that, I don't think there's a lot of players that statistically have competed with her. I mean, 17 points and 17 rebounds against UNC.
Right.
just last week.
I mean, I can't remember what she scored against Montana State, but she had double figures against Montana State. She also had 19 rebounds against the Cats.
I love the way she plays. She gets after it. Again, it's hard to, see a player, if you're a Montana Lady Grizz fan or a Bobcat fan, go the way she did, but she fits really nicely into Coach Gleason's system.
No doubt. Oh, note from Andrew Houghton. Actually, Isabel Nadabu at Sac State averaged a double-double the year after Alicia Davis. But still, I mean, if you're in the same conversation as those two, and those are two of the more dominant rebounding players we've seen in the Big Sky over the last couple of years. Here's the way it looks around the Big Sky women's hoops, presented by Advanced Imaging. In terms of the standings, Montana State 10-0. They're on a 13-game winning streak overall, and they sit at 20-2 for their overall record. Northern Arizona's 9-1. They are sitting at 18-5 overall. They've won 6 in a row coming into the rematch with the Cats in Bozeman. Idaho alone in third. They are 7-3. Montana Weber State tied at fourth at 5-5. Sac State is in sixth at 3-6. Northern Arizona, Idaho State, and Eastern Washington are all tied at 3-7, and then Portland State sitting there in 10th at 1-8. When it comes to the, I guess, any reactions on the standings, it's kind of, we're into the place of the season where there hasn't been a ton of movement. It's been fun to see, though, this back and forth between Montana State and NAU.
Well, it's so true. I mean, one loss between the two of them. So I think that obviously you kind of know who your 1-2 is going to be, because I don't think they're going to absolutely fall apart at this point. So I think I look at that. Yeah, I think it's getting really interesting. Now you've played everybody, so we're making the turn. A lot of people have, coaches have scouts. They know what they are going to see. And so now it becomes really critical as to momentum building, who's going to be playing their best basketball heading into March. Idaho, sitting at that number 3 spot and kind of solidifying themselves as a number 3 right now, to me, with a 7-3 record. And then you got Montana and Weber State. To me, they're very similar with their 5-5 records. And then you have the lower part of the standings, where you've just had teams that Coulter, I think, could beat anyone on any given day. They've just struggled to be able to put together a quarter or two of consistent basketball in order to win games.
Player of the week this week, again, Sophie Glancy. She did what she does. She averaged 22.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, shot like 68% from the floor. Not sure what else to say about her. I'm not into any sort of participation trophies or anything like that, but I do think that in the system NAU plays, Sophie Glancy is always going to put up big numbers. So I think sometimes
you can't argue with her numbers because they're there.
You can't argue with the numbers at all. I mean, she's a great player and she's a perfect fit in a great system. I just wonder if the league should maybe move this around a little bit. Not in the name of like participation trophies or anything like that, but again, Glancy's going to have 18 and 8 every night. If she plays well, she's going to have 28 and 8. But I don't know. I just think that like her stats are going to always be huge.
And I think they look at just the stats.
Yeah, right.
So they have to look at who's having the great. Because I mean, Montana State has had Esmeralda Morales in there back on the 14th of January. Right. I mean, they're 10-0 in conference play.
Exactly.
I mean, they've had players that have arguably stepped up in order to keep that 10-0 record in conference play, but they're spread.
Right.
So Coach Binford's like, we're not going to win the individual awards.
Right.
We just aren't, and so that's a drawback of team basketball. And again, I think you could point to any one of the starters for Montana State and say, I think they could be worthy of also being in the conversation.
Around the Big Sky and Women's Hoops, Krista Redpath, probably presented by Advanced Imaging. I know you've had a lot of experience with Advanced Imaging in a variety of different realms so far.
Yes, as the official cancer awareness partner of Grizzly Athletics, Advanced Imaging is on your team, reminding all Montanans of the importance of annual mammograms and all cancer screenings. Discuss with your healthcare provider the screenings that are right for you. And Advanced Imaging will provide the most advanced technology to deliver life-saving information when it matters most, because catching cancer early can make all the difference in achieving successful treatment. Support life-saving cancer awareness by attending tomorrow's Lady Grizz Cancer Awareness Game versus Northern Colorado. Advanced Imaging, quality for life.
Around the Big Sky and Women's Hoops, we are into the second half of Big Sky Conference play. Krista Redpath joining me. Coulter Nuanez. Let's take a look at what's going down in the league upcoming, and then we'll take a last couple minutes of the show here, of this segment, to focus heavily on the battle for first place going down in Bozeman tomorrow night between Montana State and Northern Arizona. NAU at Montana State, Northern Colorado's in Missoula, take on Montana. Eastern Washington's at Sac State, and Idaho is at Portland State. Then Saturday, Idaho at Sac State, Weber State at Idaho State, Northern Colorado at Montana State, Northern Arizona at Montana, and Eastern Washington at Portland State. But I think all eyes are going to be on the state of Montana, Krista. First of all, with the first place matchup in Bozeman Thursday, and I think a lot of people will be very excited to see the sort of litmus test for the Lady Grizz on Saturday with a at least currently surging team in NAU coming to Missoula. So let's talk about the game in Bozeman, though. This was a great game the first go-round. Montana State actually fell down early, but then they came storming back and they won 89-81. How much do you think the first matchup plays into this second matchup, or does it not?
Well, I think Montana State really did come out flat that
They
first
did.
quarter. And then second quarter, they really locked down on defense and scored some points. So I think that comes into play. I mean, they know who the scorers are, and certainly same style of team. They have their identities, both of them do. So, no, I think that comes into play. I think that there's definitely some, a little bit of a chip by NAU getting knocked off at home like that. I mean, they haven't exactly lost very much this year.
No doubt.
And to lose at home was tough. But Coach Payne, I mean, I was so impressed with her comments after the game down there, just about how it was just an excellent game for women's basketball in general. So I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, Esmeralda Morales had a game down there. I mean, 30 points. She was really not only all over the court, but she got to the free throw line 9 times.
Yep.
That's a big thing for Montana State. And one thing that we haven't necessarily looked at, Esmeralda Morales gets to the rim. She finds
Yes.
a way. In the game against Sac State, she didn't go to the free throw line, which was very odd, but that is outside of the norm. But I think she just kind of spearheads it all. And Dylan Phillip, KJ, Mara Dykstra, and just a lot of bench play really played fantastic against NAU.
Montana State 9-0 at home. You're right. That was NAU's lone home loss. So they'll certainly be looking for some payback for that. Montana State has made a living off of playing a defensive style of basketball this year. Northern Arizona wants to get up and down, but the Cats can get up and down too. So a lot of times the key to the game against NAU is not getting lured into their style because they'll run you in the ground, but the Cats can run with NAU a little bit.
They can. I think Coach Payne is definitely going to say, look, we need to make sure that we're making good decisions. And we could always get a shot up, but let's try to leave some of the good shots alone and look for a great shot. Maybe one more extra pass. I think that lights Coach Binford up. She's like, extra passes, so I think it is two different styles there, because they're going to get in those gaps. They're going to get in the lanes. They're going to try to cause turnovers. But I do think that Montana State can get up and down. I mean, they keep fresh legs. That's Coach Binford's whole style this year, is just keeping those fresh legs and demanding a level of defensive intensity at every minute, at every play. And she'll pull you if you're not performing.
This game's going to have such ramifications, too, because if Northern Arizona goes to Bozeman and wins, now you have a tie atop the league standings with just 7 games left to play, so it'll just be a tit-for-tat. Who can hold the rope? If Montana State wins, now they have a 2-game lead, which could prove to be commanding, because then NAU will be just playing
behind,
chase.
Just trying to chase them. So
Exactly.
that's the part that is really the strategy behind that,
Basically.
to see who comes out.
Basically, if NAU wins, you're saying, hey, let's go. Can we both win out down the stretch? If you are Montana State and you win, though, then maybe it gives you a little bit more room because you'll have a full 2-game lead. So this should absolutely be a fun one. Any more thoughts on this game?
Well, the Bobcats are really drawing down in Bozeman,
Yes,
so
they
I bet
are.
attendance will be, really good. Probably over maybe 2,500 fans.
Totally.
They played in front of 500 in Flagstaff, so I mean, different environment. It's a tough trip for NAU and Northern Colorado to come up to the Montana schools. As you know, we're engulfed in snow.
Yes.
I mean, feet of snow. And so I think that, it's a tough trip when you're playing in Bozeman, and then you have to get on a bus and come to Missoula. So I think for Coach Payne, these are some things that you need to go through. There's some questions that need to be answered about maturity, stepping up when it counts. And so I do think, this is going to be a really critical game.
Huge opportunity for Lady Grizz this weekend, too, because Northern Colorado, of all the league losses that Montana has so far this year, that's the outlier one. Northern Colorado's otherwise struggled quite a bit during this first half. So I think getting them back on their home court, a chance to get some redemption. That road swing, the Lady Grizz did not play well. They only scored in the 40s, both of those games. And then the next week was when Brian Holsinger got put on leave. So, maybe some it coincides there. I don't know. But, excuse me. But either way, Lady Grizz got to get it done Thursday to then set up something on Saturday.
Well, I look at UNC, and that's been another team that has really struggled in terms of putting together cohesive basketball. I really like the way London Gamble plays. She's the 5'8" junior guard. She played at Siena College for 2 years. She's averaging, over just over 11 points in the last conference games, and I think she's a pretty good player. So I think UNC is trying to find their way. Anaya Hall, Tatum West, Gabby Fields. Anaya Hall was a honorable mention Big Sky All Conference player. So that individually they have some good players. It's just putting it together. They've had their lulls this season, but obviously a bright spot was beating Montana in arguably, I thought, one of the worst games ever for the Lady Grizz this season.
No doubt.
So I think if there's nowhere to go but up for the Lady Grizz against UNC.
On the Big Sky and Women's Hoops, Krista Redpath, our Big Sky Conference basketball analyst. Appreciate you being here, Krista. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Coulter.